What's good, YouTube? Sensational Sinceres here, and I'm back with another Tom Clancy's The Division Vendor Reset video. We're here for June 19th, 2020's Vendor Reset. So let's get right into this to see what we got good for this week. Okay, so for our first gear items, you want to head over to Camp Hudson. Here the gear vendor has a gunslinger vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 1,749. Its roll for electronics 1,261. And the attributes this has is health, skill, haste, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the base operations. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a prototype stamina mod with 244 stamina and 3% skill haste. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the weapons vendor, and here we got a military Scar H with a gear score of 264. It has 156% headshot damage, and the talents this has is prepared, balanced, and competent. And also here we got a VX1 scope times 12 with 18.50% headshot damage, 4% crit hit damage, and 2.50% stability. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the gear vendor, and here we got a prototype electronics mod with 240 electronics and 3,105 skill power. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the advanced weaponry vendor, and here we got a Lova C with a gear score of 276. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is talented, focused, and ferocious. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special equipment vendor, and here we got a Liberator with a gear score of 260. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Unforgiven, Adept, and Vicious. Also here we got a Cassidy with a gear score of 280. It has 324% stagger, and the talents it has is Predatory, Competent, and Boomstick. Also here we got a Pecan. If you're a fan for this weapon, it has a gear score of 278. It has 19% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Fierce, Deadly, and Pecan. Also here we got a Historian with a gear score of 281. It has 169% headshot damage, and the talents it has is Dominant, Unforgiven, and Historian repeats. Also here we got a converted SMG9. If you like this weapon, it has a gear score of 285. It has 22.50% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is Ferocious, Unforgiven, and Accurate. Also here we got a tactical M249 Paro with a gear score of 279. It has 22% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Sustain, Destructive, and Adept. Also here we got a tactical vest with the talent Vigorous on there. It has a gear score of 275. The armor is 1,954. Its roll for firearms 1,179. And the attributes this has is all resistance, health on kill, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Specialized on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 1,186. Its roll for firearms 1,258. And the attributes this has is stability and ammo capacity. Also here we got some Spec Op gloves with the talent Savage on there. They have a gear score of 262. The armor is 864. Its roll for electronics 1,150. And the attributes this has is health on kill, marksman's rifle damage, and crit hit damage. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5.50% first aid self-heal. Also here we got a rugged mini reflex sight with 7.50% crit hit chance, 3% stability, and 2% accuracy. For our next gear items, we're still at the base operations. Head over to the special blueprints vendor, and here we got a quick release magazine blueprint with a power level 34. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the cavern. Here the gear vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 209 firearms and 3% damage to elites. And also here we got a prototype electronics mod with 262 electronics and 3,091 health. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Kerman Station. Here the weapons vendor has an infantry MG5 with a gear score of 267. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Unforgiven, Fierce, and Accurate. And also here we got Omega Rifle Suppressor 10 with 17% headshot damage, 2.50% stability, and 3% crit hit chance. For our next gear items, you want to head over to Camp Clinton. Here the special equipment vendor has a Historian with a gear score of 263. It has 166% headshot damage, and the talents it has is Vicious, Intense, and Historian repeats. Also here we got a Pecan. If you're a fan for this weapon, it has a gear score of 282. It has 21% damage to targets out of cover, and the talents it has is Brutal, Capable, and Pecan. Also here we got a Police UMP 45 with a gear score of 261. It has 21% crit hit chance, and the talents it has is Unforgiven, Dominant, and Ambusher. Also here we got an enhanced ACRE with a gear score of 263. It has 20% enemy armor damage, and the talents it has is Focused, Destructive, and Self-Preserved. Also here we got an M249B with a gear score of 266. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover, And the talents this has is vicious, brutal, and prepared. Also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 259 firearms and 3% skill haste. Also here we got an extended magazine with 120.50% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 4.50% reload speed. Also here we got an Omega rifle suppressor with 17.50% headshot damage, 4% crit hit damage, and 4.50% optimal range. For our next gear items, we're still at Camp Clinton. Head over to the Special Blueprints vendor, and here we got a classic M44 carbine blueprint with a gear score of 256. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to Autumn's Hope. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 3.50% ballistic shield damage. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to Madison's Stand. Here the gear vendor has a prototype performance mod with 5% support station healing speed. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the Last Call. Here the weapons vendor has a SOCOM Scar L with a gear score of 266. It has 18% enemy armor damage, and the talents this has is Adept, Destructive, and Intense. And also here we got a Loud Vent Break with 17% crit hit damage, 2% accuracy, and 2.50% stability. For our next gear items, you want to head over to the Grindhouse. Here the weapons vendor has a rugged mini reflex sight with 7.50% crit hit chance, 4.50% optimal range, and 4% crit hit damage. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the Firewall. Here the gear vendor has an operator vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 267. The armor is 1,867. Its roll for stamina 1,145. And the attributes this has is health on kill, enemy armor damage, and ammo capacity. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to West 31st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical ACR with a gear score of 278. It has 23% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is focused, predatory, and responsive. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 1,222. Its roll for stamina 1,155. And the attributes this has is health and ammo capacity. Also here we got a prototype stamina mod with 254 stamina and 2.50% exotic damage resilience. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to West 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Spec Ops pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 268. The armor is 1,192. Its roll for electronics 1,231. And the attributes this has is stability and ammo capacity. Also here we got a prototype firearms mod with 243 firearms and 2,920 health. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to West 39th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a gunslinger vest with the talent Reckless on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 1,858. Its roll for firearms 1,162. And the attributes this has is exotic damage resilience, enemy armor damage, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a prototype performance mod with 3.50% seeker mine damage. And then also here we got a heavy magazine spring with 11.50% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 10.80% rate of fire. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to West 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a SOCOM MK20 SSR with a gear score of 262. It has 157% headshot damage, and the talents it has is vicious, competent, and talented. And also here we got a prototype electronics mod with 263 electronics and 2.50% exotic damage resilience. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to West 46th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 279. The armor is 1,996. Its roll for stamina 1,253. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, exotic damage resilience, and increased kill XP. Also here we got a prototype electronics mod with 240 electronics and 3% skill haste. And also here we got a small grip red with 17% crit hit damage, 2.50% stability, and 4.50% optimal range. For our next gear items, you want to head over to West 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 277. The armor is 931. Its roll for electronics 1,260. And the attributes this has is all resistance and increased kill XP. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 64th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone gear mod vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 269 firearms and 2,863 health. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 1.50% post crit hit chance. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 61st Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone weapon mod vendor has an extended magazine with 116% magazine size, 5% reload speed, and 5.40% rate of fire. Also here we got a Mega rifle suppressor with 18.50% headshot damage, 2.50% stability, and 4.50% optimal range. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 58th Street checkpoint. Here, the Dark Zone gear vendor has an operator mask with the talent Enduring on there. It has a gear score of 271. The armor is 959. Its roll for firearms 1,234. And the attributes this has is health on kill and burn resistance. Also here we got a tactical pack with the talent Inventive on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 1,302. Its roll for firearms 1,158. And the attributes this has is health and bleed resistance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to the Park Ave checkpoint. Here, the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a black market M60 E6 with a gear score of 275. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is adept, prepared, and skilled. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 53rd Street checkpoint. Here, the Dark Zone vendor has a prototype firearms mod with 251 firearms and 3,068 skill power. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to East 46th Street checkpoint. Here, the Dark Zone vendor has a covert SRS with a gear score of 273. It has 155% headshot damage, and the talents this has is disciplined, destructive, and accurate. And then also here we got a prototype performance mod with 2% pulse crit hit damage. For our next gear items, we head over to East 42nd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an operator pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 261. The armor is 1,150. Its roll for electronics 1,116. And the attributes this has is crit hit damage and disrupt resistance. And then also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5.50% sticky bomb explosion radius. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 40th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a Marine Super 90 with a gear score of 272. It has 302.50% stagger. And the talents this has is determined, vicious, and brutal. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 34th Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a tactical M249 Power with a gear score of 267. It has 19% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is dominant, deadly, and brutal. Also here we got a tactical mask with the talent Refreshed on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 995. Its roll for electronics 1,121. And the attributes this has is crit hit chance and increased kill XP. And also here we got a prototype stamina mod with 266 stamina and 2,902 health. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to East 53rd Street checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has a military M870 with a gear score of 271. It has 344% stagger. And the talents this has is meticulous, competent, and destructive. Also here we got an operator vest with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 269. The armor is 1,798. Its roll for firearms 1,146. And the attributes this has is all resistance, skill haste, and ammo capacity. And also here we got a prototype performance mod with 5.50% first aid ally heal. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to the 5th Ave checkpoint. Here the Dark Zone vendor has an M249 Power B with a gear score of 274. It has 20% damage to targets out of cover. And the talents this has is brutal, self-preserved, and deadly. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to DZ2 safe room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has an operator mask with the talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 277. The armor is 987. Its roll for stamina 1,188. And the attributes this has is all resistance and increased kill XP. And also here we got some tactical gloves with the talent Savaged on there. They have a gear score of 277. The armor is 904. Its roll for electronics 1,177. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage, LMG damage, and crit hit chance. For our next gear items, we're going to head over to DZ3 safe room. Here the Dark Zone weapons vendor has a tactical Vector 45 ACP with a gear score of 273. It has 20% crit hit chance. And the talents this has is vicious, sustained, and fierce. Also here we got a tactical ACR with a gear score of 282. It has 23% enemy armor damage. And the talents this has is brutal, destructive, and skilled. Also here we got a Police MK17 with a gear score of 262. It has 144% headshot damage. And the talents this has is sustained, prepared, and fierce. For our next gear items, you're going to head over to DZ8 safe room. Here the Dark Zone gear vendor has a tactical mask with a talent Tenacious on there. It has a gear score of 272. The armor is 922. Its roll for firearms 1,270. And the attributes this has is enemy armor damage and blind death resistance. Also here we got a Spec Ops armor with the talent Rapid on there. It has a gear score of 263. The armor is 1,762. Its roll for electronics 1,151. And the attributes this has is exotic damage resilience, health on kill, and ammo capacity. And also here we got an operator pack with the talent Relentless on there. It has a gear score of 274. The armor is 1,256. Its roll for stamina 1,202. and the attributes to that is the skill power and ammo capacity. Alright everybody, that's it for our Tom Clancy's The Division vendor reset video for June 19th, 2020's vendor reset. I hope everybody who tuned into it found something that they needed. Smash on that like button if you hadn't, and smash on that sub button if you hadn't. I appreciate that support. Check me out streaming on Twitch. I stream on Twitch sometimes and Mixer every blue moon. You can check me out on there. And also you can check me out on Instagram and Twitter. But again, thank you. Appreciate y'all. And I will see y'all with the next one, everybody. Take care. Peace.